Most sewing machines from about the year 1970 on have blind hem stitches. Some people find them a little confusing, so this video is to clear up all the confusion. I'll show you these techniques on wovens, purchased knits, and your own machine knits. I've been designing machine knits for about 25 years, but before I got good at that, I was already a professional seamstress. Therefore, I could not resist incorporating the techniques that I already knew into my knitting projects. I used to do this in secret, but a few years ago I came out and wrote this book to help machine knitters, knitting and so on. It's about professional looking finishes on your machine knits using the sewing machine, and this is one of the techniques. Many sewing machines have blind hemming stitches built in. This one is intended for woven fabrics. This one is intended for knits, although it can be used for wovens also. Here are the results you get on wovens, purchased knits, machine knits. And for machine knitters, this is a great option if you don't want to decide on the length until you've finished the garment. In each of these cases, I used white thread for the hemming thread, even though that's not what I would use in real life, on purpose so that you could see the contrast and see what's happening. But note that if done neatly, even though it's not the ideal color, it barely shows up on the outside. This is a very sturdy and a very neat hem. It is also quite fast to accomplish. Here are the stitches on an old white machine that I recently restored. Here it is on a Bernina machine, also recently deep cleaned, and here it is on the newly restored Viking. On the Viking, we use Cam A. The secret of a successful machine hem is in the setup. Fold and pin as if you were going to hand hem, and then turn back. We'll be stitching along the serged edge, and then with the zigzag stitches, catching that fold. Using Viking Cams, you always turn each dial to the color that matches the stitch that you want to use. There are special feet available for this purpose, but I have never bothered to use them. I find that lining up the lines on the regular foot with the fold in the fabric do just fine. Having finished a little sample of the woven style stitch on the woven fabric, we're doing a little one of the more zigzag stitch that's designed for knits, also on the woven fabric, to show how well that works. Here's the resulting hem, and here it is from the right side. You can see that the tiniest little white stitches show. Now let's work on a stretchy knit, so we will use the stitch that is designed for knits. We'll use the same fold setup. In this case, I did not serge the edge first. This is ITY knit, and it wouldn't fray if you did not serge it, but you could pre-serge it. That is totally up to you. The secret to getting this to feed without stretching or gathering is simply foot pressure. Find the ideal amount by sewing on swatches, and also use a needle that works best. I don't normally use ballpoint needles. I have good luck with sharps, but use what works for you. Here it is from the right and the wrong side once finished. Now we're going to perform the same operation with the knit appropriate hem stitch on machine knitted fabric, and even though this is standard gauge fabric, fairly lightweight, it's heavier than what a person would buy. So I'm using the longest and widest recommended stitch size. Sometimes you may even want to go wider than what the machine recommends. We use the same setup. This time you would either be folding under the cast on or bound off edge, or you would pre-serge it. I would not leave a cut machine knitted edge unbound off in any way. This was a scrap, so I serged it, folded as usual, turned back as usual, and then stitched along the usual parameters. The goal always being to keep your more or less straight stitches, these are partly zigzagged, on the little bit of seam allowance, and the wide zigzag just catching the fold. And you can see it really makes a great machine knitted hem. It's as close to invisible as it's possible to get. And because it's all zigzags, it still stretches adequately. Machine knitters who would like to try finishing their knits on the sewing machine for some really sharp finishes may enjoy this book, Knitting and So On. It's available at theanswerlady.com, and it really isn't sinful to do this. Try it, you might enjoy it. It's an instant download.